Well, good afternoon.
That's good. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. We're going to be talking today about digital signage. And fortunately, we are so lucky to have an amazing person that we know for years. That is Dave Haynes. That is a journalist of digital signage. You may follow maybe 16 by 9. If you don't, you should, because it's the best place to find all the updated information on digital signage every day. Dave was at ISE in Barcelona last week, and then when we were chatting and he told I'll be in Porto for holidays, it's like, might be a good idea to join everybody and see and talk and discuss a little bit about digital signage and what are the challenges we're facing and how we can look at the future and how digital signage is progressing. And we all got to know more and more. Dave Haynes, thank you so much. We appreciate so much for you to come. And let's kick off this.
All right, well, thank you for having me.
It's all yours.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for fighting your way through the rain. My name's Dave Haynes. I'm based in Halifax, Nova Scotia, east coast of Canada. Lived there for about 5.5 years now. Love it there, but I've got to say I love it here. And I'm not just doing that to butter you up. I really do love it. I've been now to Barcelona a couple of times, and I wanted to spend some time after the show. And what Miguel didn't mention, and Miguel, by the way, one of the world's nicest people, and he works with tremendously nice people. And again, I'm not buttering you up. It's like they're ridiculously nice. They took my wife and I and my sister-in-law to a Braga game. We had a fabulous walk around the old town, the whole bit. It was wonderful to do. But Miguel also put together, I don't know if you noticed when you checked in, there was somebody using a kiosk. He put that together for me to use at an event I did in Barcelona about a week and a half ago. Solved a massive problem by doing that. It was a big networking event where we weren't using any technology and checking people in by hand pretty much. So we had this boink, boink, boink thing, and it was amazing, just amazing. So, like I said, I was in Barcelona last week. I've been going to ISE. If you don't know what that is, it's Integrated Systems Europe. You probably do, but big, giant Pro AV show, biggest one in the world. It's pretty much a must-go-to if you're in digital signage. Not that many people from North America were going, but I started going about 5-6 years ago, and I certainly wouldn't say I'm the reason people from North America are now going, but probably some at least because they read my blog, and I've been doing that since 2006. I'm an old newspaper journalist and kind of found my way into this industry about 25 years ago, and started writing about the industry because I just thought somebody needs to write the straight goods on this, and I've kind of developed myself as being the industry's bullshit filter. Pardon my Canadian, but that's what I do, and people appreciate it, and I'm now just recently passed 10,000 posts. 10,000 articles about this space. So, well, I'm not looking for applause, but. And I also do a podcast. I've done about 300 interviews, and that's a great way to talk to people and kind of dig into what they're doing in a way you can't really do with a short little, 600 words about something or other. So, with that, if I miraculously can get this thing to work properly, it's got 2 buttons, so it's possible. Let's talk about the industry. Yes, we have this. If we think about what's going on in the industry, you'll probably hear a lot of people, including consultants, including my good friends at Invitus in Germany, will say that the market is down or flat. Things aren't really happening. I don't really hear that so much in North America. There's a lot going on there because of post-COVID, particularly in retail and in quick service restaurants, fast food, because you need different ways to interact with customers, and because of staffing issues that are also directly related to COVID. So that's the impression. But if you went to ISE last week, you wouldn't think that. Place was hopping. Record attendance, They didn't think they were going to get more people than they used to see at Amsterdam because they'd moved it to Barcelona, not as many direct flights. Germans, French would have to fly instead of drive or take a long train ride. So would it ever come back to the numbers they saw in Amsterdam? Apparently, yes. It's gone so well that last week, if you do trade shows, you know this, but at the tail end of the week, you go in and you book your space for the next year. They are totally booked out for 2025. So if there's any indication that Pro AV is hopping, there it is. And for the digital signage folks, they have been in Hall 6, which is kind of one of the more distant halls. There's, I think, 8 halls in total. They're going to be in Hall 4 next year, so they've moved it a little tighter in, which says something about prominence, but it also moves them a lot closer to their close cousins, the big display guys, all the LED guys, the LGs, Samsungs, you name it, they're all there. So that's a great indication that things are happening. I talk to a lot of CEOs when I'm at this show. I don't do that much writing. I just kind of provide impressions. And the CEOs were pretty uniformly telling me that we finally made the shift. I used to talk for a long, long time about how digital signage is a nice to have. You know, they get it. People think, well, you know, this would be really nice to have in our business, but we don't need it yet, and we can't budget for it. Now the CEOs and the CFOs, or pardon me, the CROs, more to the point, are saying, yeah, we need this. We need this to communicate with our customers. We need related technologies to understand the audience behaviors and everything else and trigger content, shape it based on what's going on. So we've kind of crossed that point where now it's a must-have for a lot of businesses, which is great news if you're in it. All right, so let's talk about display trends. For the longest time, digital signage industry was all about flat panel displays and single displays, video walls, these kinds of matrices, that sort of thing. They still exist, but in a certain respect, they're becoming a specialty product for specialty needs. And LED is kind of, in a lot of ways, taking over. Not so much for interactive displays, that sort of thing. I mean, that's not going to go to LED anytime soon. But any kind of big wow factor stuff, the sort of thing that you see in a retail setting, is all going to LED. This is a big, big display that a German company, Long AG, had at their stand, which is right in the center of Hall 3, right on the main walkway. Could not miss it. It was very, very impressive. And I wanted to put that up there because I've been looking at LED since about 2013 at trade shows. And back then, the cost of it was incredible. But if you got up close to it, you would realize, oh, yeah, it doesn't look so good. You need to step back. And they used to talk about pixel pitch and viewing distance and how you needed to be 10, 20, 30, 40 feet away before the picture kind of tightened up and you didn't see all the individual pixels. Now you get this sort of thing where I was literally this far away from it, just kind of looking for flaws, because in a lot of the displays you will get, they're kind of like checkerboards. They're individual modules that attach to what they call a cabinet. And if you look at the side, or if you look at it in a black state, you can kind of see the checkerboard. You can see how it all works and how it comes together. With this thing, I had to look for a long time, and I finally saw one kind of little thin horizontal band, and that was it. It was impressive, and it's actually made by a US company, which surprised me, and I knew these guys. But they said the Germans, as you might expect, were really rigorous. They said, beat the hell out of them in terms of this has to be so good. So that was probably the best thing in terms of large form factor I saw at the whole event. But the interesting thing is even a lot of the kind of tier 2, tier 3 Chinese companies, people you've never heard of, who don't really even market in Europe or North America, had product. Like there's, let's see, there's, I sure don't know who Rescience is, or Mr. LED. But you go up to their stuff, and it looked pretty darn good. It's going to be at a significant discount from that other one. But for a lot of functionality, pretty good. So you're thinking now in terms more about service and support and price, and not so much about image quality. So it's crossed that kind of divide of now we don't have to worry about, I wouldn't use LED just because it kind of looks like crap. No matter the distance, and you kind of tune it to it, you can find good product. But you do have to be very careful about who you work with, because you really don't want to be 12 hours away from any support, and the person on the other end of the line can't speak a lick of English, which happens, or in your case, Portuguese. Micro LED is everywhere. I don't know if you've heard about micro LED, but it's kind of the big thing. It's super, super tiny light emitters. I wanted to put this one up. This is from a huge Chinese manufacturer called BOE, mostly known for flat panel displays, but they're starting to show up at this show and showing product like this. And they called theirs MLED. Now there's mini LED and micro LED, and a lot of people like me pointing out, excuse me, you're calling that micro LED, and it's not. But they've co-opted the marketing term, like some other marketing terms like holograms. Are being co-opted like crazy. But my point here is it probably doesn't matter. This is the difference between an LED chip and a micro LED chip. You can see like they're really tiny. Like these things are super, super tiny. Look at it through a microscope, tiny. And the big technical challenge is trying to manufacture a whole bunch of those and transfer them onto a glass substrate without having a bunch of flaws, sort of dead pixels. Once they figure that out, it's far cheaper to produce that than this, because you need robotics machines to go boom, 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 like at blindingly fast speed to put those onto a substrate, which is why they cost so much. So it's annoying to purists. Really doesn't matter, I would argue. What matters is, does it look good? Does it meet the budget? Because they are expensive, and there's other ways of doing it. In a lot of cases, what you want to do, like if you're sitting, middle back there, between just a conventional fine pitch LED and a micro LED, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So you don't need to spend all that money. But if you're this close, then sure, then it starts to make sense. So a lot of people don't think about that. They just want to buy the bling. What's the newest thing? We want micro LED because it's amazing. And the only people who are going to really probably go down that route are in the Middle East, in Qatar and Dubai and all that, where money is really no object. They'll just spend whatever. It's a rounding error to them. So it should suit the environment as well. Transparent LED. That's something else that's been around for some time now. It started with film on glass surfaces, windows, and then you started to see grids. And it looks like kind of prison mesh grids, where it looks really good from the front, but if you go inside a shop window and look at it, it looks like hell. You can't see out, and the store designers are going, that's not going in here. That completely throws off our whole design. So what's now happening is you're seeing things like transparent OLED and even transparent micro LED. And this is legitimately micro LED. It meets the technical definition of it, because I pounded away at the guy to say, yeah, it is. And the funny part is, one of the big noises out of ISE was that Samsung had transparent micro LED. I've got that here. That's Samsung's. A lot of people staring at it. They wouldn't let anybody get any closer than about 10 feet. Whereas this one, I was this far away and I was taking photos of the flaws, the dead pixels and everything else. But talking to the guy, and I said, the Samsung one out there, is that yours? And they said, yeah. So if you're hearing all this noise about the Samsung micro LED, it's AUO, it's a Taiwanese company. This is interesting. A business case finally for this stuff, for something that looks good. This is tech from a company called Muxwave, but there are some other companies doing it as well. And it's a thin, thin foil. If you remember on buses and trains, you sometimes see vinyl graphics that go over the whole train, even on the windows, and you can see through the holes. It's like that, except it's embedded with LEDs. Super, super thin. And it actually looks good from the inside of the building. And this is in full daylight. And it's got enough brightness where it actually, is workable. You're not waiting for it to get dark before you really see anything. But I mention this because there's a business model now for like even an event center like this, where if you have events coming through all the time, you can remarket that window for the different events and sell it to the vendors. So while this may have cost, I don't know, let's say 300,000 euros or something to put in. If you charge 10,000 euros, 30,000 euros, whatever it is a week, you're going to recover that pretty quickly. So we finally have something of a business model for transparent LED. Skip by that one. Transparent OLED is another technology that's been around since 2014, 2015 when I first saw it. $15,000 US back then. It's come down, but it's still super expensive. And they don't have particularly long operating lives either, like OLED does not last as long as LCD. They've been trying and trying and trying for some sort of a business model and use case, and the latest thing LG is doing with it is saying that it could be the fronts of display cabinets in restaurants. Now, I think it's cool. I like what they're doing. It's interactive, but I don't know of too many bakeries Santa Catarina Street or whatever that can afford probably, I don't know, $40,000 worth of glass cabinets that are interactive, and as opposed to maybe 1,200 euro for 4 LCD screens across the top. They're going to say the same thing. So God bless them if they can sell it, but I don't think it's going to work. This I found particularly interesting. This is, if you think of, let's say this wall, not this specific, almost it, the specific one, that a wall surface like this where it's just this, if suddenly it started coming alive with visuals like the kind of the flame look or whatever, that's what these guys are doing. And they're little 3D printed plastic cases like this, and they're about that deep, that snap over top of an LED tile. So all of a sudden you've got walls that can look like wood, look like granite, whatever it may be. The woman was showing me that she had a whole carry bag full of different things, almost like upholstery samples or carpet samples. Snap them on there and do really, really interesting things for a wall. Now, it's the sort of thing that you're not going to do in an office for communicating with staff or anything. But if you're looking to create experience, do something really interesting with the space, I thought this has possibilities. And it's not, it is a little startup, but it's not a startup from some knuckleheads that came up with an idea. The company behind this is, or the guy behind it, started ROE, which some of you may know is probably the biggest name in rental LED displays. Huge. Most of the big touring concerts use ROE material because it's really good. So Unilumin, which owns ROE, is backing this, but they're running independently from it. That's what those things look like. Kind of interesting. And then there's this. This is another company called Ventana, related to a video processing firm called Megapixel. And these are LED display tiles, much more like the conventional ones, but they're only as thick as iPads. And they're about 12 by 12. And what's really interesting is if you look up in the right top corner, there's a little hexagonal thing. That's what connects them to the wall. So there's no big mounting infrastructure, not a whole bunch of metalwork. There's just these little things with magnets. So you just kind of snap them in there, and they find their place, and they're really, really tight. There's a glossy version and a matte version. So the glossy version is going to pick up a lot of reflectivity, so you don't want to use that in certain environments, but then you'd use the matte one. Picture doesn't do it justice. They look better than that. But I thought that was pretty neat, too. And the other thing happening with LEDs that I think is intriguing, when they first started coming along, I go to a lot of trade shows and wondering, will they start using LED instead of printed materials on the top of stands? Yes, that started to happen. Then you started to see LED feature walls in the stands that were talking about the product, maybe doing demo videos, things like that. Now they're the whole damn stand. They're using LED for every component of it, other than the table that you're going to write on and the closet that you're hiding all your stuff in. I saw a few like that, and these guys are specifically in that business, so of course they did it that way, but I could see this being a trend as well for any kind of an event. Projection, obviously been around for a very long time, always been challenged a little bit by brightness issues, and challenged as well by if you want to do something beyond just filling a rectangle or a square, you need special software, particularly if you're going to gang several of them together. That's all been conquered by software. You can do a lot more. So you can pretty easily map a giant umbrella like that. But just yesterday, I was in Gaia, sampling port, because I'm in Porto, that's what you have to do, and took the tour. And what was really interesting is they had one of those giant port barrels, and a wine cave is dark. So they use that as the display service to explain part of the port making process. And I thought, that's really clever. That's a great way to use that. So projection is kind of finding its way back as an alternative to big LED or certainly LCD video walls, that kind of thing. It's still a specialty product, but so is LED. So if you're thinking about things, don't discount projection as an option for you. It's there. You can do things with it, and they're a lot brighter than they used to be as well. E-paper. E-paper's been around for 20 plus years now. We all think of it for e-readers. But most of the e-paper product you've seen in digital signage probably hasn't been very good. It's monochromatic. It looks very gray. It's fine in terms of energy savings and everything else. But this company is from Slovenia, called Visionek. They do a hell of a job making black and white look beautiful. They have art directors on their staff, so you look at this and go, wow, that's really nice. And the interesting thing is, as volume has come up for e-readers and it's being used in other ways, not as expensive as it used to be. It used to be a case where it'd be sticker shock. You'd say, yeah, I'd like to use an e-reader or e-paper for what I want to do, but then you'd find the price and go, well, never mind. But 400 euro, 600 euro, 900 euro at single quantities. So you go into volume and it's not bad, and these things will last for months on a battery, so you're saving all the energy. And you're also conveying to your staff and to your customers that we're thinking about sustainability, we're doing things around it. So the other guys, the other manufacturers are now trying to do this with color. And I took a photo of this because I think it's really representative of where color e-paper is at. It ain't ready yet. The photo I took actually does a better job than what it looks like in real life. It looks very, very muted because they have to put some sort of a filter on it. So it mutes the color. It's coming, but it's super expensive still. But it's something to watch over time because there are going to be lots of clients who say, we would love to go to e-paper, but we can't just do black and white, we need color. There are some spectacular color e-paper displays out there, like a 32-inch one from E-Ink, the main manufacturer, but it's heart attack time when you get the price. So that's got to change as well with just maturation and the simple thing about time, and with time things come down in cost, usually. A few years ago, maybe 10, 12 years ago, Korean display manufacturers started taking out the Japanese manufacturers that we all thought about as the main suppliers of LCDs. Samsung and LG started to supplant Sony, Hitachi, Toshiba, Sharp, all those guys. Same thing's happening now with the Chinese. They're coming. They used to be just TV guys. Now they're making pro-level displays and really good-looking ones. So Hisense, TCL, BOE, companies like that are now very actively in the market. And if you're digital signage people at all, you've probably heard of a company called BrightSign that makes media players, little purple boxes. US company, and they ship a lot of them globally. Always have a very crowded booth at ISE. They now have a display, this company, TCL company called Mocha, with a BrightSign player embedded in it. So instead of buying a Samsung smart sign or an LG smart sign, you can buy a Mocha smart sign with BrightSign inside. And these guys are going to take out the Samsungs and the LGs of the world pretty quickly because they can compete with them much more in price. They've got the fabrication plants and everything else, so you're going to see that shift happening. It already is in many respects. Software market has always been crowded. There's always been way too many software companies in this space, and now there's more. They keep coming. I go to this show, and I'll walk around and go, oh my God, I saw 4 more companies who have digital signage CMS software platforms. And I look at them and I'm wondering, did you not do any market research? Like every country has numerous ones, and there just isn't the business out there for all of them. But they keep coming because I guess they're software developers, and they figure, this isn't hard to do, so we'll write something and call it our own. But because it's not hard to do, everybody does it. My friends at Invitus, consulting company in Germany, they also are publishers, and we share content. They had a micro conference last Wednesday, and one of the things they talked about was the state of the software business, and they've started to compare different platforms, and they've compared 26 so far. And they said, from what we've seen, they're all pretty much the same. They're at feature parity, and they're mostly at price parity and so on. So how on earth do you differentiate yourself if they're all pretty much doing the same thing? You're left competing on price, which is deadly as a business. You do not want to be competing on, on a race to the bottom, and we can do it for $1 a software license or something, because then you want to sell 100,000 licenses a month or something. Good luck with that. The smart companies are defining market verticals. I did this slide and then realized this was the wrong market vertical to show, because everybody and their sister is in retail. If you define yourself as being retail focused, you're competing with hundreds of companies as well. The smarter ones are finding much more narrow things like auto retailing or fashion retailing, that sort of thing. There's a company called M-Cube. It's more of a solutions provider in Italy. All they do are luxury retail, all the luxury brands, and they're doing very well with that. Another one, Treson in Spain, almost all they really work with is Inditex, but Inditex does Zara. I'm obviously a major fashion guy, but the other Zara brands, whatever the heck they are Inditex brands. This is the stuff that matters. Remote device management, data handling, the ability to work with different business systems, POS systems, inventory control systems, all that stuff. And then security. All sounds really boring. It's not exciting to sell or anything else, but the buyers in the digital signage software market and overall are shifting from being visual merchandisers to being IT people. And the IT people care much more about the underlying system and its security than they do the pretty pictures and the fancy user experience, that sort of thing. So if you're looking at this sort of thing, you need to be thinking about this stuff, because the end users do not want blue screens of death. And we see that all the time, still, years later. Another concept that's really starting to emerge is turnkey. The idea of we're going to have one company that does everything for us. That, for many, many years, and again, pardon my Canadian, was bullshit. They said they were a turnkey solution, but they were using a bunch of partners and saying, we're turnkey, but they've cobbled together a bunch of different companies who can, have a meeting and try to gang something together. We're seeing companies now that are being very much verticalized, where they start with front-end consulting and they go all the way through to execution and network management. More and more companies are hiring solutions providers who will not only come up with the plan, produce the content, but they'll manage the thing for them. So it's like outsourced IT services. It's outsourced visual marketing and communication services. That's going to be a mega trend, I think, going forward, because big companies don't want to have to deal with all kinds of disparate service providers and hardware vendors, because when there's a problem, you know what happens. They all go, he did it. It's her fault or whatever. It's never their fault. So you get this argument, and they want one supplier, one service provider, one invoice, one point of contact, or as we often say in North America, one throat to choke when there's a problem. That's how they want to go. All right, Samsung. Samsung is Samsung. They do their thing. They're a giant company. They, for a lot of years, were in the software business for something called Magic Info. But that was an on-premise thing that you installed, and you had to learn it yourself. You need to support it yourself, by and large. Then they introduced a cloud version, and it was kind of something they supported, but not really, and depending on who you talk to at Samsung, it's the real deal, or it's, hey, oh, don't worry about that, it's just something we give away. Now they have VXT. They put a lot of resources into it. It directly competes with the software companies who, for more than a decade, they've courted as partners, your software partners. They said, you, Mr. CMS software company, I would love for you to develop your software to run on our smart signage screens, our system-on-chip displays, with our own operating system that you're going to have to learn that you've never used before, never have any other use for, but we want you to invest all the resources to do that. It'll be awesome. Now, because they're losing to the Chinese on hardware, they've developed their own thing because they need recurring revenues, and they're going directly into the business, and they're even doing digital out-of-home advertising. They have DOOH ads as an option. They have audience measurement. So computer vision, that sort of thing that other companies do. They're saying, we'll do that, and we'll roll it all into one. It makes sense as a business, but they're pissing off everybody who they thought were their partners. I had a really great, fun conversation with a senior Samsung guy last week about all this, and kind of went at him like, you know this is irritating a lot of people. Why are you doing this? But they're going after the small to medium business market. They say they're not going after the enterprise clients, which a lot of the software companies who started in SMB have moved up to enterprise because SMB is hard. And there's far more money, and it's far more reliable to work with large banks, large retailers, large auto brands, whatever it may be. I think it's interesting. I think it can be disruptive, but I think it's going to be a mess. Because we were talking at lunch, anytime you're working with small clients, a client that has 3 locations and they bought all of 6 licenses from you, they can be more needy than a bank with 6,000 licenses because they don't have an IT department or anything else, and they just chew at you. They're always calling saying, this isn't work, how do I do this again? All that stuff versus a company that takes it on board. They'll have people who learn it. They'll have people who are designated to do that, whole 9 yards. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to make, and has started to, and will continue to make a lot of noise in this industry. And of course, LG being LG has copied them. LG copies Samsung. They're like their big brother on almost everything they do. Samsung came up with a kiosk, which Miguel would probably know lots about 3 years ago. And then a year later, LG had a kiosk, and it looks exactly the same. But, it's not like they're copying it. We had just the idea at the same time or a little later. So now they have LG Business Cloud, which is their VXT thing. And I had a different 45-minute conversation with them last week, and I politely used the term train wreck. They just don't know what they're doing with it. The more Canadian term, and I won't use the whole thing, is cluster. Just a mess. It's just really a portal. But they'll get there eventually, so you have the big software guys, display guys, getting into the software business. It's interesting, companies like Philips, also coming on pretty quickly. They have software, but they call it Wave, and it's solely about device management, and they take great pains to say, we're not doing the Samsung thing. This is just for our software partners to be able to sit on top of our devices more easily and understand what's going on, and when there are problems, be able to remedy them. So things are kind of all over the place. So in closing, is the market doing well? Based on everything I saw last week, yeah, it certainly appears to be. And if you're wondering about it, is it worth the flight to Barcelona to go see ISE? I would say absolutely. For 4 days, you would learn a lot, and you'll come home exhausted, confused, and everything else, but your knowledge will be expanded. So with that, thank you very much. I hope you're able to hang in there, and obrigado. Obrigado. That's one of those things. and my voice held up.
Thank you, Dave.
I thought I was going to lose my voice.
Yeah. Thank you so much. For those who haven't been at ISE, I'm sure this was a fantastic way to understand what happened last week, either on hardware or on software. So we're going to go to a next stage of this, and I'm presenting Maura and Rui José. Maura is the head of marketing innovation at Nude in Portugal. With over 15 years of experience, she's responsible for enhancing brand awareness, growth, reputation of Nude brand in the national market, as well in its positions in real estate services. Leads the area of marketing and external communication, also ensuring innovation across all areas of operation and in the assets managed by the company. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks.
Yeah. Been 2 days writing this.
Yeah, I understand.
Rui José, a professor that we know well from many years, here from the Minho University. Is an associate professor in the Department of Information Systems and the School of Engineering in the Minho University, where he has been working since 1995. So that looks like a long time. Yeah, and the researcher at the Algoritmi Center and computing laboratory and communication with several research interests in ubiquitous systems, smart cities, and public displays and public content. So let's talk a little bit about what we have been hearing. Thank you. Thanks. What we have been here today, the challenges, and that's the reason why we are here today, to talk about a little bit about the challenges and where will digital signage be. And we invite everyone to really raise the hand, and this is an interactive, we are an interactive group of companies, so it's good that we have everybody putting questions or having ideas. To start, let's say, what are digital signage is a kind of new area, but also old. This has been for some time. It came from the signage that now is become digital. It's now becoming to be pervasive in many places. Everywhere we go, we find displays, information, updated information. How will that look like in 10 years? What are the challenges so that maybe to make it more simple to implement? Because there are still some barriers to implement some digital signage. And there are several areas of digital signage, so many new different things that we can do. What could we say to start? Are the challenges to make it more pervasive, and what you think will look like in some years?
That's a big question.
Yeah, too big.
It's the only question for all the...
But I'm sure there are some...
I think in 5 to 10 years, it's just going to be pervasive. It'll be like light switches in rooms. It'll just be part of the built environment. I think you will see LED mature to a point where it is a building material. It'll be a design consideration. So when somebody was designing this, instead of using this particular type of wood, they could consider this whole room being active. So rather than it just being a projection on the screen here, this whole room could be projected. It could be active LED. Things just happen, and all data enabled, so that it's not just we have a playlist. At this time, it's going to do this. It can be responding to different data triggers, to the mood of the audience, everything else. That might seem a little ethereal, but I think it'll just be part of how we do things, as opposed to this very, very narrowly defined thing that it's been for the first 25 years of its life, which is, oh my God, there's a screen over there and somebody's got some video running on it and it's not a TV.
Yeah. What do you think will look like the future of digital signage, or how will it become pervasive? Do you see that also happening?
Well, if you look back at the last 6 years or so, we have seen the market evolving very fast in terms of consolidating, in terms of creating these partnerships that we now have that go from content creators to the ones who deploy the screens, and all these things have come together. So the market's mature in that perspective, and so we have much more and better screens a bit all over the place. Yeah. But I would say it's not yet pervasive in the sense that I believe we missed something there, which is the looking back at what I work in terms of digital innovation. We have many similar cases we can look, like mobile phones, for example, yeah, where we know that openness and convergence around certain technologies really prompted change that we haven't seen yet in this market, which is about very low barrier for collaboration between different players, different industries, different technologies. And when that happens, it really creates a new opportunity for many new things which were not possible before. And I think that would be the trigger moment where we can see this market really exploding to many other situations, use cases, and really breaking this model where we are depending too much on specific markets and specific partnerships, which in the end is just a way to, let's say, overcome these challenges and creating a situation where people are able to cooperate and collaborate to bring these things together. But it's still close partnerships, it's still something that needs to be negotiated, it's still a challenge to make it happen. So once we make this trigger of making it really easy for different companies to have their technologies together and coming up with new and unexpected use cases for digital signage, I think that will be the real trigger moment where we say, well, now it's pervasive.
Well, so there are still some barriers to make it pervasive for now.
Yeah, especially for new use cases, yeah, of course. When you look at the current market, I think it's moving very well in terms of what it's doing. And as we have seen in this presentation, there are lots of technology which have improved a lot and are lowering those barriers. Mm-hmm. But it's still in a slightly, in a sense, a closed environment.
Yeah, it would need to be even more easier.
Yeah, exactly. More open to unexpected uses, mm-hmm, new alternatives, new creations. That's when things really explode.
Great. How have you seen this happening in the brands that you manage and in the daily basis?
So, in a fast-paced world where we live, our customers, and I'm talking about tenants that are our main customers, and then we have the final customers, B2C, there's this need for constant evolution, for constant experience, for constant immersion. People are consuming content and consuming technology on a daily basis, so their expectations are always so high that we are always trying to meet their expectations and sometimes bring them some wow factor. Of course, this means that in a couple of years, as Dave was talking about, and also the professor, I don't think there's any limit because we are passing those barriers almost every day. There's still a long path to do it, especially here in the Iberian market, but we are getting there. But I think also experience, connectivity and data enabled, as you told us, but also democratization of access to both digital solutions for both content, and I think you are going to talk about AI next, so I'm just going to leave it in there. But I think that's it. So our goal and we manage places, and our portfolio now is the major part of it is shopping centers and also galleries, and of course some mixed-use projects where we can balance both housing, offices and retail. We tend to be in that path of where we have to try to convince the owners that technology is a good asset and they will get return on investment. And you know, guys, that sometimes it's not so easy to explain that. And then we have to also to create an experience, and a good one, to assure that customers are really, interesting in their customer journey, and that we can add some value, added value to the asset.
Yeah. and the technology needs to get the contents to them. Definitely a point very important we're talking here is about the return on investment, because these things cost money. I mean, the displays cost money, managing the contents as time goes by, even if you make it more simple, more automatic, they will cost money.
Yep.
So this will only make sense if there is return on investment.
Yep.
Are there good examples on good return on investments that you know?
Yeah, when you said that, I immediately thought of a company called Videri, which is out of New York. They have these super skinny display panels, but big deal, they're super skinny display panels. What's interesting is the customer who they're not formally allowed to talk about, but it's Red Bull, because I'm not writing it, I'm just saying it here, and you can't say this outside of this room, they have been working with Red Bull for several years now, and what they're doing is, if you've ever been to a bar, I have 3 times. Yesterday. You will remember there are plastic signs, or in the old days, neon signs for different beer brands, for different drink brands, and it would just be their logo. Excuse me, and that would all it would show. What's happening is Red Bull is buying these square, I think they're 18, maybe 16-inch square displays with an Android device loaded on there, their software, a distribution rep, not an AV tech, a person who goes in and brings in cases of Red Bull, also brings that in, takes out the wiring for the existing backlit sign, mounts this thing, very easily mounts. You just find a stud, hang it on there, boom, you're done. It takes no time at all. And it's showing content. It's impulse ordering for Red Bull products. So instead of it just being a static logo, it can say, have you tried a vodka and Red Bull, or whatever things you drink with Red Bull? I don't tend to drink that. But they have found that the ROI is as rapid. I'm trying to remember the number, but I believe it was less than 3 months the things pay for themselves. So Red Bull has 50,000 of these plus out in the field across Europe in all these different bars and all that, because it works so well for them. And I was saying to the Videri guys the other day, I don't know why you're marketing your software. I don't know why you're showing these pretty video walls and all that. You should just be jackhammering the hell this ROI model. Even if you can't say their name, you can say global energy drink brand or whatever it may be. And sell that, because that's the best ROI model I've ever come across so far. It's very, very powerful, and it obviously really, really works.
Yeah. And this is becoming a worry daily basis on who implements. I'm sure you worry on that when you make an investment on digital signage, on how you get the return on investment. Do you guys also know or have ideas on interesting ways to get that return on investment? Have you ever faced any experience on that?
Well, I have, because I had actually more than one digital signage company, so but I didn't do very well, so I'm not exactly the best one to answer that. But going back to my previous answer, I believe one of the challenges might be to actually lower the risk for experimenting with new things. Mm-hmm. And so if you had this opportunity to make more experiments without actually investing a lot of money on that would really accelerate the whole process of finding the best use cases and working them until they actually work, possibly. Because we don't see that very much either. So sometimes it works, right? And then we have these success cases, but then there are many companies who are investing in their own business models and trying new alternatives, but they don't do it. And probably some other company will be trying the same shortly afterwards. Yep. And no, they don't learn with that. And so I guess that's something that is also, let's say, bad for the market, because there's a lot of money being spent on these experiments, which just
sometimes it's just wow effect. Many times happens to be just wow effects in some experience cases, but then we see more and more People are investing because they have a logic, they have a strategy to reinforce the messages. And it's more a marketing communication and where the digital signage becomes one tool.
I'll give you a great example of wow factor, something that you would think was just being put in for reasons of dazzling visitors. I'm not sure about Europe, but in North America, in larger cities, a lot of office towers are going from water fountains and other sorts of features, the main feature that you would see in the lobby, and putting in large video walls that cover the elevator areas and the whole bit. Like Salesforce is a good example of that, all of their buildings. And I asked one of the LED manufacturers, why are they doing this? Like what could possibly be the ROI model out of this? And what's happening, and the thinking behind it, is commercial property developers, particularly in the wake of COVID and so many people working from home, the marketplace is even more competitive in terms of attracting tenants. So if you put in something that makes the tenants feel really good about their building, like I work in a super cool building, that will help retain the tenants as opposed to them saying, well, I'm going over to this building because it's cooler and maybe it's a little bit cheaper. But it's also showing an ROI in terms of attracting tenants and attracting employees to buildings. So if you have a really interesting looking building, really great lobby with all this cool content and everything else, people are more prone to say, yeah, I'd like to work here, versus another company that might have that, particularly if it's a kind of company where they need to have the staff come in. I've heard directly from big design companies like Moment Factory saying, this is a deciding factor for a lot of younger employees. They'll make a decision, I'm gonna work for these guys because I like what's going on in the building. And it's not just the free food at lunchtime and so on. It's the way the whole building sets up.
Yeah, and we many times we relate digital signage with having displays at retail front doors, but it's also, there are so many other places for digital signage, like indoors, in office spaces, or industrial spaces. There are many subsectors of digital signage implementations.
Back of house is amazing because you have entire workforces that don't have company emails, don't have company phones, they don't have mail drops like mailboxes like in the old days where you'd put in your HR information. There's nothing. So how do you communicate to deskless workers? It's through screens around the facility, and that can be everything from HR messaging to we have a carbon monoxide leak, go this way to get out. You know, and triggered to business systems is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely there's implementations of that.
Yeah, from our side, and of course the perspective is slightly different, but I'll try to materialize it for better understanding. We manage the common areas. So, of course, that there is no recipe for success. It's a combination of factors and the balance. It has to be smooth because there's a lot of factors involved. So, of course, anticipation, find an opportunity. Then, of course, the co-creation. Because if we have the same solution, then all of our competitors, we are not adding value to the assets, we are not adding value to the final customer. And so this co-creation where we find a balance between, okay, let's do a tender, but let's create a concept with a provider because they are experts in the market. Okay, I know my business. Sorry. I know what my customer needs, but I don't know everything that is in the market out there. I don't know which is the better solution. And if I go to you, Miguel, and say, okay, I want a LED screen there. I'm already giving you everything to you. Okay, she wants a LED. I'm not I will deliver the LED. I'll keep it happy. But no, what I want to do is, okay, I need this. This is the purpose. What we need is this. Now let's try to work it out on this. And there are some, as you were saying, Professor, there are some companies that are eager to work with you on that and to build a new solution. They want to test some new technology, and they want someone that is crazy enough to go through that path with them and to lose a lot of energy, a lot of hard work to try to build something different. And maybe that is the thing that we need, because if it's something different, it's a wow factor, and people will drive there. We will increase footfall. The same thing with a new mixed-use project. So if I want to create placemaking in Braga, and I need something totally different from what's in the north for people to come here, why not bring a 3D screen with 3D huge content like in Seoul, like in China, like in New York, and it's we are creating placemaking because people will come here to see it, or we will create awareness. And of course, I don't know if the city hall or is interested in investing so many, but it's just to try to explain that there is no actual solution. But of course, you can have return on investment, but sometimes you have to dig deeper. Because for us that we manage common spaces, it's not like, okay, I will do the sale now. Sometimes for me, success is I'll put LED screens in columns and I will create an ambience. Yeah. No advertising at all. I just want people to go there and to see, okay, I will feel at ease here because shopping center is so loud, and I need a place where I can rest a little bit, to relax, and to increase dwell time because we want them to stay longer. So these are the factors.
But these things don't run by themselves. I mean, they could
How
run.
do you know?
They still need to be managed by people. And the thing that I've been feeling and we have been discussing is that about professionals that understand better the digital signage and its challenges, how to impact the most. Is the industry ready for, or has the industry professionals that understand well enough how to have the maximum impact on and bring out the return that digital signage has capability of? Are there professionals that really understand how to take the most of digital signage?
I certainly think the good business development people understand that they're doing a lot more than moving boxes or selling licenses, that your job is inherently a consultant as well. That if you're doing a good job with what you do, your first question absolutely should be why, not how many. Why do you want to do this? What are the challenges you're facing? What are you trying to fix in the way that things work? If you are just trying to move units, and unfortunately you have a boss who's beating on you to do that, you're probably not going to be terribly successful. The people who are successful are asking those questions, are subject matter experts themselves. They invest the time to learn the industry. They don't go to a retailer and not understand anything about the challenges of being a retailer. In a lot of cases, companies will hire people who come from that background. And if they don't, they get them educated on that, because you'll get kicked out of a room pretty quickly if you don't understand the business that your target customer is in.
Yeah. Do we have, the digital signage software typically requires content to be produced in a way that it's different than the others for other platforms. Do you feel that we're well educated on that? People are, is that, maybe it goes to what Rui was mentioning, it's not that easy for now, but do you feel that?
That it will be easier to create content?
That we have professionals today.
No, I think one of the things that I was mentioning that changed in a good sense is that media agencies, for example, and advertising agencies, they start understanding the medium and starting to be able to create for the medium. And so they are professionals in creating content. And so I would see that as being one of the important contributions the market has had in the last few years, that more and more people are into this medium, are able to create content for this medium. Of course, part of that is because the medium itself has sort of crystallized around a specific type of media. And when we look at possibly other types of media, that would probably not be that easy. But in a sense, it's a sign of maturity of the market, that we consolidate on this format, and that now we have people who understand the format and know how to create for this medium as well.
I think what often happens is you get a good project in its inception. There's a great budget around it. There's good meetings, a lot of thinking around what this is going to be, what it's going to look like. But then it falls down 6 months later and the same content is on the screen. Or there's no communication out to the tier 2 operators. And I was looking at something on LinkedIn today. It was for I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I think it was a Gucci store in Abu Dhabi airport. And they had this LED halo over it. And they were just showing JPEGs and like head almost cut off and that sort of thing, because the content was handed off to local or regional person instead of them fully understanding that this is a special display. Content needs to be designed for this really weird but special format and everything else. And that costs money. And quite often there's the launch budget, but there's a minimal operating budget. And I'm sure you hear about that every day.
Indeed, and it's a constant learning, because I'm always, and this is good because I work with innovation, so I constantly messed up, but we have to fail fast and let's go. But the thing here that I want to bring to the table is that there are a lot of questions that we need to answer. So when I go to a provider to launch a tender and I tell them what is the purpose in order for them to work on a solution, I'm expecting a turnkey solution. I'm expecting that that provider is able to give me not only the hardware, but the software, but then thinks about the maintenance, thinks about the content creation, and can give me by modules the prices in order for me to decide if I want the turnkey solution or if I'll go elsewhere because the content creation is cheaper, or I have the FTEs at in-house to do it. Because in my case, since I'm selling this to the owner of the shopping center, I also have to take into consideration that, okay, if I sell this to them and they say, let's go, my other worry is I need for the local team to operationalize this after I deliver the project. Because if I don't protect them enough, and I think you all know that literacy changes in each team. So if I don't protect them at all costs at the project management phase, where I go to the provider and say, okay, I want an extent warranty. I don't want 3 years, I want 5, and I'll pay it in CapEx. And I also pay the management fee, the maintenance fee, sorry, for the first year in CapEx altogether. Because I know that the local team, it will be for them a challenge to have all these costs in their common budget. Then I think, okay, I will give you content for 1 year in advance. So during this time, you'll have to work it out if you want to pay me again to deliver more content, or if you're at ease to go directly to the market and ask more content. And this is something that you really need to have someone in your team, and I learned that fast, that has a basic knowledge, or advanced knowledge on how to negotiate with providers, on how to negotiate with agencies, because if I'm not speaking the same language as they do, I will provide a poor service for the owner, and in innovation, if you messed up, and you messed up often, I will not get incomes. And if the local team are not involved, are not aware, if they are not trained, if they are not at ease with all the contract, the maintenance, in 3 months, 6 months, I will have the error message there, and they are calling me, look, Maura, I know that you delivered the project, but this is not working, and you did a not so good job because I don't know who to call, this is not like this. Yeah. So I'm obliging them to have a maintenance contract from day one, because if I leave them to them, they will say, okay, I'm not going to spend it because I have maintenance, I have a warranty, sorry, for 5 years, so I'm good. But of course, they are not good. Maintenance warranty only covers some part of the deal itself. So this is challenging.
Yeah, I think that what I always learn is that there should be someone to blame. Yeah. At least our customers always want that, so that someone is responsible to fix it. That goes in line with that. I think it would be good to have some questions from the audience. Feel free. Is there some that we could take?
Don't be shy.
There is a system. We try to innovate today. There is a system also in case you prefer. Just put your phone on a QR, point your camera to the QR code. You can write your question and it will come up on the screen. Anyway, you're very welcome to bring it live. Okay. In the meantime, there's one. Great. Oh, we already have two.
So can't you count?
And there's one other participant typing. That's good. So, what are the best practices for digital signage in a shopping center? That's a good one.
That's her.
Again, of course, there are a lot of best practices. I mean, at the headquarters of Nude, and we have local teams, local marketing teams that are running the shopping centers and the galleries. So what we try to do, because me being an octopus, trying to give guidelines to everyone, they really need to follow them. But of course, there are some best practices that are standard for the industry itself. So, as you know, when visiting a shopping center, all stores want to have lots of screens with a lot of brightness for people to enter and people to shop. And of course, we need to regulate this because the customer journey of the client must be smooth. And so we have to not only do this audit where we go, and this is the same with Wi-Fi, for example. If the signal is too strong, it's going to be a problem for the remaining. So there are a lot of things. But then in the common areas where we put our indoor channel, where digital signage that is managed by us, of course, the brightness is important to be adaptable. In terms of sustainability, of course, we are very keen on having everything automatized. So if the shopping center is going to close at 10, the screens, of course, are disconnected. But honestly, I'm not giving you some wow standards. It's the basics that we do.
There are many things to worry about.
Yeah, and we try also not to be too much invasive.
Yeah.
So when you are going to our shopping centers, you will see that we are not very keen on, for us, less is more, if it's well done.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think the other thing that's important for the shopping center operator, what I've often seen is if they are putting screens not in the stores, but in the common areas of the shopping center, they quite often put them where there's available space, as opposed to where they're going to actually have an impact. I see that over and over again. You know, we had a big bulkhead area, so we'll put one there, but it's not a heavily trafficked area, or it's the wrong direction, all that sort of thing. So think about the audience as opposed to, you know, how the building sets up.
That is a very interesting question, because it's indeed a fact of literacy. So, and this is a constant in my line of job, where I try to engage the teams and try to tell them that sometimes we have, of course, to manage, and I'm going to give you an example. So we had amazing directories done by Enigma some years ago in one of our shopping centers, and then we closed the deal with JC Deco. And of course that they were in prime locations, Dave. So they were asking us to move some of them, of course, to put a MUPI. And I think that's it. We really need to be client-centric and to see how this can benefit the user, because nowadays wayfinding for us is a challenge. If I have 10 people going there to the directories to try to find a store, is a lot. So we have to, and this is something that we try to do, is to have multi-purpose solutions. So In the same way where you can have the directory, you can play games for the kids, you can take pictures and send to your email with some thematics all over the year, and of course you can monetize it with some advertising when it's not being used. So that's it. The customer journey is evolving so fast that we need to try to find other solutions. Otherwise, the owner spent like 120K in directories that are not being used, and we are not gaining any profit of them. So
that reminds me that we are in 2024, and there still exists paper signage in many of those shopping malls.
Not so cost effective, but
and which year will be that it will be all digital sign? I mean, all digital, no paper. It's gonna be like 2034, or will be still existing at that time paper? What do you guys think?
Oh, I don't think paper is ever going to be totally replaced. It depends on what the use case is.
Yeah, e-ink helps a lot on that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you're now seeing massive rollouts of electronic shelf labels because they just make sense in retail, that you can dynamically price, you can take stuff out of stock, all that kind of thing.
The low power.
Yep.
Yeah. That reminds me that we have a question here. To what extent does sustainability fit into digital signage? I mean, it's about powering, eco-friendly, and I've been hearing even about digital signage displays that eat CO2 and things like that. For sure, power is a very important thing. How about sustainability? Have you been hearing that it's an important subject?
Much more important, or much more of a consideration in Europe than it is in North America, where you still have, blazing hot environments like Las Vegas with air conditioning blasting and the front doors open. So they're not thinking about it yet, and they're still building the biggest possible displays they could. But certainly in Europe, they're thinking, because of what happened in Ukraine and still happening in Ukraine, that in places like Germany, they're telling them you can only run digital out-of-home screens and non-essential screens at certain hours, things like that. But the hidden thing in all of that, and doesn't get talked up enough, is these things eat power. You can save a lot of money if you figure out ways to turn them off and on. And one thing I didn't really know, because I don't manufacture this stuff, but one big challenge that's slowly being resolved is if you turn off a big LED display board, it's not like a light switch. You just turn it back on. It's quite involved for it to come back on. So you can't just schedule it off and on. It might not come back the same way, that sort of thing.
You shared the e-ink and about one color, black color, white, but definitely they are growing a lot in the color scheme. And we have been discussing that also with some of the players in the market, especially people doing outdoor displays, really large outdoor displays. And that has been worry for them, and some municipalities also worry on that, especially in Europe also, as you mentioned. And they're looking in some years to start bringing out outdoor displays with e-ink technology, because you really can run them on solar panels. That will be more and more, I think, a worry for the future. Rui, how about you comment on what impact all the signage in mobile tech impact digital signage as we know it?
Well, I think that's a very key question, because mobile now is everywhere, of course. And mobile has this particular feature, which is it's not dependent on physical space. So it comes with the people who go to spaces. And so the main difference is that you can have many overlays of information of different entities, provided by different entities, which is certainly being provided in a specific place. And with screens, it's just one version of what you want people to see. So mobile has this possibility that creates all these layers on a specific place, on the same place. These different ways of looking around you and seeing the information that is available. But I don't see that as a challenge to digital signage. On the contrary, I think that's the way forward is actually for the convergence between both, because if you have digital signage, mobile gives you the ability to interact much easily, gives you the ability to actually know who you're talking to, gives you the ability to give more personalized perspective of what's being displayed on the screen. So it's an excellent complement for the screens. And the same is true the other way around. So if you have many digital mobile-based services, some of them can benefit a lot from having also some physical existence, from making people aware that this service is being provided there. If you want information on this particular topic, if you want our guide for the museum, for example, it's here, just use this service or this application. And so these two things, I think they actually complement each other. And so it's going to happen a lot more, I would say.
Yeah, yes. So another hot topic coming is AI. Everybody's talking about AI. So, of course, it comes also to digital signage. It will come to everything, by the way. AI is around for everything. How do you see it helping digital signage? We already saw gender-specific ads with cameras identifying who's passing and everything. But what innovations are around for the corner? Guys, I mean, I know that it's a key thing.
I've been involved with AI companies. I'm definitely not an AI person, but I've worked with computer vision companies for about 15 years now. The whole thing about emotion, your emotion in front of a camera or serving ads based on gender and all that, it's largely a parlor trick. It's me being Canadian again, bullshit. It's not being used at all. I went to ISE thinking that I was going to hear all kinds of stuff about AI. I actually didn't from the software companies, but I did see one really compelling demo from a London company called SodaClick. And they were using large language models, and they've been working with them for 4 years, long before ChatGPT became a thing, for voice ordering for drive-through in drive-through restaurants. And the whole thing where you pull up and this tinny voice says, what do you want? And da-da-da-da. They've got it all done where you come up to that ordering position and you do all the ordering just by voice. And they've used AI where I think they said they could handle 96 languages. They could handle a lot of ambient noise. They could handle accents. I said, well, what do you do if somebody comes up and he's from Glasgow? I don't know if you've ever been to Glasgow, but I have. I can't figure out what the hell they're saying. And I'm 3/4 Scottish. Impossible. But yeah, we can handle it. And they did the demo in front of me and ordered a hamburger and then changed something or other. I thought, okay, well, that's pretty easy. And so I said, hi, I want a glass of red wine. And this was at a drive-through restaurant. And let's see what happens here. And he said, I'm sorry, we don't carry that. And just like, boom, like that. So it was very, very slick. And they've been working on it for 4 years. And that's very much fundamental to AI, what they've done there. It's not rules. It's not rules-based or anything else. It's very much handling stuff on the fly. So that's the sort of thing I think is interesting. And I saw another company called Intuiface, where it was complete opposite of that. It had nothing to do with anything customer-facing, but they were able, their software does interactive applications. And by using AI, they were able to cut about 85% of the grunt work of coding out of it because ChatGPT just tumbled that part of the code out for them. So it really expedited a lot of work and took all the crappy stuff out of design and just left that to the machine.
Yeah, I saw also another that created content for embedded on the digital signage software, because indeed AI technologies are really great to build contents on the fly, and they're really interesting to be used inside the digital signage software contents to build the best contents to achieve some results. Are there any ideas that you have seen on AI?
No, I'll just say that it's you need to go after the data, right? Because for artificial intelligence, that's what you really need. And when you look at digital signage, it's not obvious what the data might be. So the use cases you're talking, it's really about language or images or faces, which are areas for which we are able to get all this data. So if you find other places where there's a lot of data, I guess AI will be there very soon.
Yeah, AI will be in many places indeed. So, moving on, what challenges does AR, VR, and metaverse bring to digital signage industry?
I'm 66. I got nothing.
So you haven't tried VR?
Once.
Oh, okay, good.
It's kind of like my experience of almost walking off the stage.
I've tried for a week. Took home some VR technology to try it, and I wouldn't say they compete with digital signage. I don't know if you guys have tried on that, or if somebody wants to comment on that. But I think they are more individual usage for now than they are for a public application.
It's a one-to-one thing. It's not a one-to-many, which is what digital signage is.
Yeah.
By and large, except for information kiosk by Enigma.
Yeah. Many people now in last week heard about the guys using VR in public spaces. The guy that uses the Apple something driving a Tesla. But that's on a public space, but for an individual usage.
Yeah, I think only to add one subject. So for us, metaverse is still not there yet.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of expectation throughout the years. Okay, it's going to be the next big thing, but it's still very expensive to do a wow solution there. It's still not so accessible for the majority of people. And being in the market that we handle, we have lots of targets, and we also have to have a solution that's coherent to all. So in terms of AR, VR, for us, the starting point is kids and families, because they are demanding, but they are more open to change and to experience. And so we start with that. But of course, we have some solutions in our shopping centers, in playgrounds, other solutions where they can use or transform the existent hardware that we have to accommodate this. But it's still very expensive. The content itself also.
They need to be built specific for that.
Yeah, and having the same content every year, like even the licensing of games, what we did last year when we did buy AR and VR solutions for our shopping centers, for 4 shopping centers, what we did is to buy the games, develop and buy the games. I don't want to going endlessly paying a license.
Yeah.
So we had like a pack of 8 contents, and then we just the team is autonomous to change the games, and
they are great for to create experiences, let's say.
Yeah, like AI for us is like customer care. For us is amazing AI, and we have been working with Google in a case study for a virtual agent that it's really helping us the way we interact with the customer to prepare their visit. And it's a hell of a job 1 year giving it content, because the Portuguese Brazilian first.
Yep.
And then is the thing that it has to learn, and it's natural language, but you have to always be trying to give them information. And the other thing is content. For us, we really think that AI will help us to create more content. We always going to need the human part, the empathy, everything. But for a first draft, for a first idea, a kickoff, a starting point, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing, yeah, definitely. So first, for in 10, 20 years, with the advancements of AR and BCI, can we imagine those technologies replacing traditional digital signage screens? I think you kind of answered that as one to all, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be an either or.
Yeah.
They're going to be complementary. It's just like it is today. We've got paper, we've got digital.
I think
Still have radio.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed, that reminds me another thing. We work on the touch industry. Many people ask us, what's going to replace touch?
Yeah, COVID was going to kill touch.
Yeah.
Actually, was boom time for it, right?
Indeed, it was a record for touch. And anything killed touch, or like nothing killed the keyboard, nothing killed the mouse, nothing killed. It's just one more layer of one more thing, one more way to interact with the machine that people can use. And for sure, VR, AR will be one more way to interact with the machine, but probably more in a one-to-one than in a one-to-all. So another hot topic indeed is this, the IoT, and the importance of IoT in the digital signage system, and indeed IT in general, and IoT is having a big influence on the signage industry. And it's like a merge, it's a connection between both. It's kind of getting everything together. It's really important, isn't it, Dave?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you are not thinking in terms of how you jack into different business systems, which are at the same time jacking into all kinds of sensors, you're not in the game. You've got to be thinking about all the different things that can impact what's going on. And the example I always use is it's profoundly boring, but to me, super interesting. I was running through Paddington Station in London a year ago to a meeting, and I had a little bit of time before, so I found a bar and had a beer. But then I realized, before I go to the meeting, I better go find a washroom. So I'm wandering around and see down a hallway, there's washrooms, and there was a sign that showed you the occupancy in each of the men's and women's washrooms. And it was like parking stalls in a parkade where they had little sensors for each stall. Same thing. They said, so there are 3 stalls open, and typical women's one, there are none available, and people were lining up to get again.
Exactly.
It's good to be a guy. But you know, that was dead simple. But I looked at that and I thought, that's perfect. It's profoundly boring, but it helps people. And that's what you want out of these things, and that's using a sensor, starting with a sensor. But it can be building systems, and the example I used before is if you have a big factory and there's a carbon monoxide leak or some other gas, you need that automatically go into screens flashing red or whatever with arrows saying go this way or do this or whatever it is. It's a big deal, and that cascades all the way up to much more sophisticated things.
And controlling screens remotely, have access to everything.
Yeah.
There are the guys from Signage. There's a company that is gathering all the data from several companies in an IoT interface. You guys help me.
Oh, Signage OS?
Signage OS, yeah, exactly.
Out of Prague.
Yeah. So that company is doing a great job in the mix of IoT and digital signage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, if you're talking to a company and they're not able to do, if they just say they have an API and they can't really elaborate on what that is, move on. You want somebody who really understands APIs and what you can do.
Yeah, they eat everything.
Yeah.
And then they generate the interface so that anyone can control that. Okay, so what types of interactions can we anticipate from the utilization of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and even mobile devices, such as bring your own device in digital signage solutions or smart cities? Question for everyone in the panel. So we have to answer. Who wants to start?
Let me repeat, I'm 66.
Okay, thank you.
What?
So one off.
I'm 57, so I don't know. So I can just, I'm just, Portuguese. So in fact, I can just drop something for the table for Rui to pick up. But at this phase, and let's face it, I know that I'm always saying the same, but we have to really understand our target, and in our line of business, this type of experiences nowadays is niche events. And they work. And people really accept that invitation and go there and experience. But unless we have like a partnership with some of the technological companies, I don't see the different owners that we have to just in the next 1-2 years to put this or to democratize these solutions, at least in the shopping centers nowadays. Nevertheless, when I told you that we work also with the neighborhoods and mixed-use projects, I see this being more useful in communities, in smart cities. And we see that there's a lot of investment coming from the European Union to some parishes for them to start working on that. I'm not going to say that it will be easy, because we know that they have the money, and then until doing is a long way. But I believe in the smart cities concept and in the way that we can interact. And we are also trying those solutions, but internally. So I already know that the weather is an important factor for footfall in our shopping center. So if the weather is good in November, and sometimes in Alegre Setúbal that happens, because people still go to the beach on November. Yes, they go because it's good weather. I know that my Christmas actions are not going to be successful that weekend. But if I know that it's going to rain, I can compare with all of the other years. That's why I had a good weekend. That it's not because of the Christmas action that it was so good. So AI, and it's important for us to handle also this big data, to take care of this and to help some prediction in the way we handle things in our business.
Okay, so I was looking at this question and I was thinking that where to start, right? Because it's it would be a very long answer for me, since this is a lot about what I normally work as a researcher. But looking at these terms there, I will just tell you that to look at them: virtual reality, artificial intelligence, mobile devices, smart cities. I often see them together all the time. Yeah. You know? The only one which is normally not there is actually digital signage, because, as I said before, it has become sort of a, let's say, a closed industry in that sense. And so the challenge for me, what we might see as something that will have a very big impact in terms of smart cities, is for digital signage to be part of this larger ecosystem of digital devices, web services, APIs for everything that we have nowadays. And then digital signage will be there doing exactly what it does nowadays, but in connection with all these huge ecosystem of other digital services. And so that's what I see smart cities as being an important future domain for digital signage, because, you know, in a city, the ecosystem is very different. We don't have a local manager who controls, you know, the lights or the level of whatever is done. It's much harder to do that. We have many different entities. They all want to have their services there. And so we can't have the type of control and the type of planning that we have in a shopping center or in a store or whatever. And also, as I said, digital signage is still a very closed industry that needs ability to actually connect with all these other ecosystems. So we're not there, definitely not there. So as Maura said before, this is still a bit of a niche domain in a sense, no matter how big it is already and how it has grown in the last years. It's still a niche in that perspective. But in the end, I think that's exactly what we'll see. Digital signage will normally become part of smart cities, but then it will no longer be such a closed environment. It will be much more connected to everything else. That's a challenge for the future.
That just reminds me another thing, another question I was putting myself, is how big is the signage industry? I mean, how much billions does it generate? Are there numbers on that?
No.
No. So, there should be some billions, because, see, the IC has 1,400 exhibitors.
Yeah.
There's LG, BOE, Samsung, there's billion-dollar companies.
Yeah.
LG themselves, they generate 20 billion, BOE 32 billion. So I'm sure it's not just signage, but there should be, this industry is...
There are reports that come out every day if you have digital signage on Google Alerts, which I do, that will size the market and say it's a $25 billion market and it's growing with a CAGR of this or that. All those reports are numbers that are just pulled out of the butts of people working in a boiler room in Bangalore, pardon me, Pune,
Selling
India.
reports.
Pune, India. They're little research factories. And they get repurposed over and over again and quoted as being real. But if you look at those sites and see all the reports they crank out, on the same day they're putting out a report about syringes or adult diapers or whatever. They do reports on anything that looks like an industry. But there's no credible report that's sizing the overall industry. You can get that for the display side of the industry and the hardware components, but the software industry is so fragmented and so relatively small, and research companies do their research based, or they produce reports based on the opportunity to sell them for $5,000, $25,000, whatever the number is. There are very, very few digital signage CMS software companies with the budgets to pay for those things. So there's not a buying audience, so they're not getting knocked out.
The growth revenues, do you have numbers on growing revenues or growth rates on the signage industry?
No.
No. Well, I mean, sometimes, as I say, it happens the same because of the hardware. We deeply look or try to get some ideas on interactive digital signage, especially because we're deeply vested on that. So what we've been hearing is about 15% growth rate, and this is happening incredibly in the last 10 years. This market is interesting also for that. We don't remember a year that was like flat, like 0 or -5. Has been interesting, and this industry is also interesting because of that growth rate that always keep growing, and that has only to be with the impact it creates to people and to the businesses. Okay. Going back to the questions, definitely this is working. Yeah, it's good. So do you consider AI as a key factor for analytics? I mean, the question roundup is, are analytics important and AI can help on that? I'm sure, I'm sure.
Measurement is key. If we want to give an overview to our owner of the efficiency of our job and the way we are managing well the site, we have to present them an Excel. Or, if you want to go past that, a report, of course, automatized report that they can check in real time to see how is the footfall, how is the sales going, and of course that we can do this in a lot of ways, but for us, marketing, innovation, we really need to speak the same language as the owner. So, and the only thing is KPIs and return on investment. They do not do the conversion if I only speak about awareness and how cool it would be to have that. So,
yeah, it's the reality, right?
Yeah.
So another question in sum is does digital signage help the traditional retailers compete with the online Amazons? Does digital signage help on that?
Well, you have to get them into the stores. So if it drives people into the stores, yes. But it's a big challenge.
There are some projects where people or screens can help drive or interconnect the accounts people already are using in their shopping. Like if I go to Amazon, I see on the screen, or if I go to a physical store with my account previously logged, and then I can just order online, but physically.
Yeah.
Digital signage can help on those projects, definitely. But there are still experienced projects nowadays on that.
Yeah, well, with programmatic advertising and technology is advertising technology, basically, it's much more possible to hyper-target your advertising, and you're starting to see pitches to do things like geo-fenced around a particular store. I will take any available inventory or a percentage of that inventory within 3 kilometers of my store. If it's available, I want to advertise this, and then there's some traceability around that this many people would have seen the ad in, whether it's on a gas pump, which happens in the US, or on the face of a C-store or bodega or whatever they may call them. That sort of thing is possible. The challenge, though, with programmatic is it's so fragmented. There are so many different buying platforms now, all using their own nomenclature. It's amazingly confusing to figure out what they're going on about.
Maybe one day they get together, like a Signage OS is putting them to talk together.
That would be nice.
Dave, I think this question is for you.
Uh-oh.
Even if it says open to all. What are the main challenges do you think small, medium companies face to advertise within digital signage overall? You've talked about the content creation, creating, crafting. Curious about others based.
It's for SMB. It's a lot easier than it used to be, and there are platforms that very expressly say you can create content with the templates that we preload on here. You can do the whole thing. You can change stuff based off your phone, a phone application, as opposed to a desktop. So you're not having to, go to a laptop or whatever, try to remember the login and do all that. I would say probably the biggest thing is the ingenuity of the marketer. Some people are just very good at coming up with sales and marketing campaigns that pull people into a store. And some of the most amazing things are from companies you wouldn't think, what do they know about marketing at all? They're just, it's in their heads and they're good at it. But you see so much cliched stuff that isn't going to move the needle at all because it is using a template or it's just copying what 5 other people or 500 other people have done. So it just looks like wallpaper. So software is part of it, but a lot of it is just your marketing sense.
Yeah, digital signage is definitely a tool for the marketing, for the businesses, right?
It's not the answer.
I just add that with the democratization of everything, what we are seeing is today, everyone does everything. And in terms of marketing, since it's a visible thing, everyone feels that they are inherited to speak about it, the quality of it, the effective of it. So if you are going to see a campaign and you start to try to see who did it, is some guy that never worked on marketing but think that this is easy because I go to Canva and I mix that and that's
exactly.
it. And then you go the other way around and you see the same image because the free ones are everywhere because people use it. Yeah. So I think that the main issue here is coherence and quality of your brand. Because if you want to create an experience, if you want to be different, of course now if you put some energy on it, you have all the tools where you can create content. But in the end of the day, you have to be coherent. You have to respect your brand if you want for people to remember it. And that inception, where the customer passes and see that image and totally understands that is your brand, this is something that requires strategy, that requires hard work. So I think these are the main challenges nowadays.
No doubt. Yep, agree. There has to be a strategy. Moving on, as price come down on equipment and peripherals, falling year after year, will we have technical human resources and companies to respond to the market, to the democratization of digital signage?
Yeah, well, just like anything else, there's going to be more and more chatbots, at least doing first-line customer response. The big question is, what's the second line? And is the second line, are they knowledgeable, helpful?
Good. I was reading in the meantime.
No, you have to read the one of unlimited access.
Okay, got it. Okay. Even thought digital signage allows to target audiences by keeping their privacy in place and not relying on individual profiling. How do you think accurate targeting and reporting could be improved, both in US and AU? Well, accurate targeting and reporting. Definitely reporting is quite important. And analytics play a really important role in that. But accurate targeting, are we really on digital signage targeting individual people? Is that the idea? Should we do it? Can we do it? Are there companies doing that? I mean,
Well, technically it can, but it's nonsensical.
yeah, I think so. Privacy is quite important.
Well, privacy, but just audience and volume of people. It's not a one-to-one medium. You tend to have numerous people in front of a screen at any given time, and they're interested in different things.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's really an audience. It's not one person. And there have been multiple attempts to do these kind of things. And you have obviously two problems. The first is you need information about people, which is not easy to get or viable to get. And even if you do, you're targeting this particular person. There's probably a few more just next to that person. So it's not very effective in the end, I'd say.
Yeah.
And don't forget GDPR.
Yeah, of course.
And we are highly audited on that case. So if we not secure the best interest of the customer, the best interest of the owner, it's a big mess, and we can lose a lot of money. And in our line of business also, even if the tenant is not respecting GDPR, sometimes we are the ones that are involved in that because they are using our space. Of course, we are renting and they're responsible for that. But for the customer that enters in our shopping center, is a place managed by us. It's our brand, Allegro. So
Yeah.
if it does not feel respected, or if we are gathering data and then sending some campaigns, he will be not so happy and we'll put a complaint on it. So.
Yeah, you mentioned in GDPR privacy, especially in Europe. I mean, in our business, we feel that a lot, especially in Europe and also in Canada, with the
Privacy by design.
the law 25, I think so, or GDPR in Europe. There has been a worry, and even certifications have been in place and being requested by customers more and more as a proof that you respect privacy. It's quite important nowadays, and we feel in that as a really hot topic to look on. And there are already certifications for that. So you make sure that your software or
I was just that it's not just a privacy issue. Even if that wasn't a problem, you still need to know what you want to target. So what do you want to show this particular person? You can do it with one experiment, that's fine. But if you have a network with multiple campaigns running, you just can't scale this kind of decisions of this is for this particular person, that's for that particular person. It becomes too complex to do. So
you have to target groups, interests,
very dynamically. It would be a mess.
Aggregate.
And also the increase of regulation you see. Just a couple of days ago, the AI Act. So we are seeing that the regulation itself is moving fast now. Some years ago, we had technology, we did what we wanted, no one cares. And now we are seeing that the entities are being more aware of it and they are launching some regulation, and we have to see how the market adapts to it.
Respect that. So we have two last questions. I would leave the most interesting to the end because I really want to hear that. And let's go on. When developing digital signage models are ecosystems, should experimentation and R&D follow return on investment or the other way around? Wow, that's a
Hot topic.
that's a key one. That's a hard one. Well, there will be no product without the R&D, but also there is no product if there is no people that will use it or experiment it. So it's like a chicken and the egg.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you guys say?
I agree.
Yeah? Anything about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think return on investment must be first, because if you don't have it, you're not going to have much time to do any research anyway. So.
That goes back to that why question.
Yeah.
Purpose, yeah.
Why are you doing this?
why we're doing this. Yeah. So Dave, if you are stuck on Horizon,
Well, my response would be, for how long, and is there a washroom? You know where I'm tilting.
yeah. Now, definitely the last note is very important. Great presentation, also.
Thank you.
Any other question? Anyone wants to make a question on this, or I guess this was useful. Yeah, great. So I think we learned several things for those particular. Yeah, we did.
They did not abandon the boat yet, so.
Yeah, that's good. Definitely, it was really great to have Dane, Rui, Maura on stage and sharing this with everybody and discussing this about the digital signage. That's really a topic that we like to talk about. And it was really good to have all of you in here. And we learned a few things. How digital signage is evolving, and it's evolving. There are many things going on. There's one key thing is if we make it simple, the traction will be even faster. If we simplify, and there will be some markets. I'm guessing that the Samsung example you gave, the VXT, is probably addressing that, looking to address and to target some simple applications, simpler applications where it's easier to put the contents, maybe in a TikTok way or in an Instagram way. We learned how the industry is growing and where some of the key topics like analytics, digital signage, return on investment, AI. It was really great to share this with everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave. Obrigado. Thank you.
Class dismissed.
Now it's time for a beer, right?